I was hired by a wealthy family at a high price to be a scapegoat, pretending to marry into their family out of gratitude for saving my life. My wife hates me, believing I ruined her chance at a perfect marriage with her ideal partner. Her family is very wealthy, but they only give me $5 a day for living expenses, leaving me starving while she changes boyfriends every day. To please her young boyfriend, she drove drunk and crashed into the hospital's power supply box, resulting in my mother's tragic death. Afterward, she coldly handed me a black card and asked how I could bear to have my mother buried in such a rundown hospital. She is truly a person obsessed with money, capable of anything. Take this card to find my aunt and get a VIP ward. Don't even think about overcharging me. I'll check the bill carefully. I silently threw away the black card and began preparing my mother's funeral arrangements. She doesn't know that my first love chose to run away, leaving her alone. I was just a tool she paid for to comfort herself. Now that my mother has passed away, I've repaid all the favors she did for me. It's time for me to leave. Serafina Vanderbilt, the ceremony has already begun. Where are you? At my mother's funeral, Serafina's mother took my phone and called my wife, Serafina. A man answered and said, "Auntie, Serafina went to bed late last night and hasn't woken up yet. I'll tell her when she gets up." Serafina's mother was furious upon hearing this, crossed her arms and scolded him before hanging up in anger. "Aldrich Whitaker, I feel so guilty. I spoiled this child. She hates me now. I never expected her to come, and I don't feel sad about it." I handed Serafina's mother the contract I had signed years ago, saying calmly, "Serafina's mother, the 7-year term has expired. And the marriage certificate between Serafina and me is also fake." I thought Serafina's mother might have guessed what I was going to say. She wiped away her tears and interrupted me, saying that when Serafina found a suitable heart for her mother, she had thought her mother would finally get better, but she didn't make it. Aldrich. While Serafina also had issues, the forensic examination confirmed that your mother's death was not due to a medical accident caused by a power outage, but suicide. Could you consider giving her another chance? After all, she risked her life to find a match for your mother. Suicide. How could she leave without seeing her children grow up? I know this is just an excuse she made up for Serafina, and I don't feel like arguing with her. I'm grateful for her help back then, but now Serafina doesn't need me anymore. Can you let me go? Serafina's mother sighed, handed me a gold-embossed card and said, "Since you've made up your mind, I won't stop you. There are only 7 days left until the original deadline. You could give her some time to adjust. We've endured 7 years. There's no need to wait another 7 days." I pushed the card away. This money is already more than enough. I can't accept it. Serafina's mother stuffed the card into my pocket, patted my hand and said earnestly, "If it weren't for you standing in my way, our relationship would have grown cold long ago. This 100 million is just a token of my gratitude. Aldrich, please continue to keep this a secret for me." So this was hush money. I knew that if I didn't accept the money, Serafina's mother wouldn't feel at ease, so I reluctantly smiled and took it. Back then, Serafina had defied her family's opposition to marry her first love, even going so far as to force herself to do it. But before the wedding, her first love ran away with a wealthy woman and moved abroad. Serafina's mother feared she couldn't handle the blow, so she paid me to act out a charade. She tampered with Serafina's car, and I pretended to save her life as an excuse to marry him. At first, Serafina didn't blame me. She even wrote a farewell letter to her ex-boyfriend and decided to marry me. When she learned that I had injured my hand saving her and could no longer perform surgery, she felt deeply guilty and searched everywhere for doctors and folk remedies to heal me. After much effort, there was still no result. In the end, she cried in my arms, promising to give me a child and a home. This happy life continued for some time until Lysander, the cousin of her first love, appeared. He presented evidence accusing me of being the mastermind behind the car accident years ago. Serafina threw the abortion papers in my face and spoke harshly to me for the first time. Aldrich, you're the kind of person who'll do anything to climb the ranks. You don't deserve to be the father of my child, and you don't deserve a family. I held the papers tightly, my heart aching terribly, tears streaming down my face. That day, Serafina ended our child's life with her own hands, and our relationship was forever changed. All of this was arranged by Serafina's mother. But my mother's life was in her hands, and I was powerless to do anything about it. Stop pretending. If you want to keep acting, go ahead. She saw me crying but didn't care at all, even knocking over the delicious food on the table. From now on, your daily food allowance will be $5. Aldrich, you want to live a good life and love money, but I refuse to give you what you want. She walked away without looking back, holding Lysander, who looked just like her first love. She was surrounded by a group of arrogant people. As soon as Serafina spoke, they started causing trouble for my work outside. Even a beggar felt sorry for me and bought me a bun, but they destroyed it without mercy. This meat bun costs 2.5 yuan. That's half your daily food budget. You sure know how to spend money. They kicked the dog bowl in front of me, saying it was leftovers from my dog Bruno, and told me to use it. I used to think my life would just keep getting worse until the agreement ended. But a few days ago, Serafina told me my mom found a heart donor who can transplant it to her. But Lysander said his cousin wasn't lucky and needed someone to kneel and pray on 3,000 steps. Heart matching is very complicated, so the fact that she matched means she must have put in a lot of effort. I thought the 3,000 steps were just a punishment for lying, and that she still cared about me. But when I knelt down, she looked at me with anger in her eyes. Aldrich, you weren't sincere enough. As a result, he didn't get the good fortune, and now he has heart disease. This heart is his now. Kneel again and pray sincerely. She was just teasing me, seeking revenge. How ridiculous. I actually imagined that she might like me a little. I staggered to my feet, feeling numb, and wanted to kneel again. Passers-by couldn't bear to watch and stopped me, saying, "Your legs are injured like this. If you kneel again, won't you risk your life?" Serafina saw the condition of my knees, turned her face away, and snorted coldly, thinking if your heart isn't sincere, nothing you do will matter. So she said, "Then eat a month of vegetarian food and sincerely pray for him." A vegetarian diet was much better than dog food, and after the punishment ended, I even gained a little weight. After descending the mountain, I rushed to the hospital to inquire about heart transplantation, only to learn that my mother had been transferred to a smaller hospital. Before I could ask her why, I received the news of her passing. I kept wiping my mother's portrait, my eyes vacant, tears long since dried. Serafina was right. I really didn't deserve a family, and now I had none left by the time I finished my work. Serafina finally called me. This child waited until everything was over to call. At least she had the decency to apologize. Serafina's mother muttered under her breath, took the phone for me, and put it on speaker. Immediately, Serafina's cold voice came through the phone. "It's your mother's birthday soon. You should prepare something yourself." Being scolded like that, Serafina's mother felt embarrassed and got angry right away. "Serafina, he's your husband, not your servant. His mother just passed away. How can you make him prepare for someone else's birthday banquet?" Serafina was confused. "Auntie, isn't she sick? Where is she now? I'm about to leave. I don't want to cause trouble." I went back to my hometown. I changed the subject and took on the task of organizing the birthday banquet. She didn't ask any more questions. Seeing that I was considerate, she said with satisfaction, "You have good judgment." After some time, Auntie's health improved, and I also prepared a birthday banquet for her so she could celebrate properly. She didn't know that my mother had already passed away. 7 days later, I had to leave, and there was no future between us. When it was time to go home, Serafina gave me an address and told me to come over. I thought she wanted to discuss the birthday banquet. I pushed open the door to the private room and saw only Serafina with a cold glass of wine. I asked her why she agreed so quickly to host the birthday banquet, only to discover it was because she had taken my mother's money. Aldrich, 7 years have passed, and I thought you had changed for the better, but it turns out you haven't changed at all. Lysander handed me a tissue and pretended to blame himself, saying he shouldn't have mentioned it, causing us to argue. It's all my fault. Serafina, don't scold Aldrich. If you want to punish someone, punish me instead. Serafina held his hand tenderly, gently rubbing his face, which wasn't even hurt, and said, "Don't do that. It hurts my heart. Besides, you didn't do anything wrong. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have known that Aldrich dared to ask my mom for money. Tell me, dear, what reward do you want?" Lysander rested his chin in his hands, thinking seriously. "You've already bought me a Lamborghini and given me a lakeside villa. You always give me gifts, and now I've gotten used to it. I guess I've become a bit materialistic. Right now, I really want to eat the egg yolk pastries from that place in the east part of the city where we always go. Why don't you ask Aldrich to go buy some? It's 30 kilometers away. Don't you have a car? I can lend you the keys." He handed me the car keys, but Serafina suddenly snatched the keys back and said, "What qualifies you to drive? Let me walk there step by step. It's only 30 kilometers. You're a big man. What are you afraid of?" I just nodded silently without saying a word. In the private room, the other girls stared wide-eyed and laughed happily. "Serafina, you're so funny. Don't worry, we'll keep an eye on you." Serafina didn't expect me to agree so readily. Many words she wanted to argue back were swallowed back into her throat. She looked at me seriously, feeling that something had changed about me in the past few days. In the past, every time she punished me, I would desperately defend myself, accusing her of being unreasonable. But today, I was unusually quiet, as if I had lost my soul. She raised an eyebrow, snorted coldly, and said, "After 7 years, you still don't know how to obey. It must be your fault for not raising her properly. This time, I have to see for myself." I limped along, with Serafina's car following behind. We passed through the bustling city center and entered a narrow alley. The car behind us suddenly stopped. Serafina saw me sweating profusely and gave a soft, cold snort. She waited there, wanting to eat some street skewers before we left. They chatted and laughed as they walked toward the street vendor. I remember when Serafina and I were close, I also wanted to eat at the street stall. But she looked displeased and said, "Aldrich, you're the son-in-law of the Vanderbilt family. Eating at a street stall isn't appropriate. People might talk behind our backs." For this reason, I attended classes every day to learn Western dining etiquette. However, when we arrived at Lysander's place, he didn't even know how to use a knife and fork when eating steak. Serafina not only asked for a pair of chopsticks specifically for him, but also complained to the restaurant, demanding that every table be provided with chopsticks. Now, she was wearing a custom-made dress worth tens of thousands of dollars, standing in a place swarming with flies, enjoying the fast food Lysander handed her. It turns out she has this down-to-earth side too. However, I feel like I'm not worthy of being around her. The sun was blazing, my knees ached terribly. Feeling numb, and I felt dizzy. Suddenly, I lost consciousness. When I came to, I was already lying in the hospital. My pant legs were rolled up, my knees were covered in ointment, and bandages were wrapped around them. Serafina sat by the bed, scooped a spoonful of bird's nest soup, waited for it to cool, then brought it to my lips. Chattering, the doctor said, "You fainted from malnutrition. It was so worrying. For your health, I decided to feed you something light. Why can't you sneak some better food?" About the money in the account, Mom told me it's for your mother's medical expenses. I checked your account too. There are no other expenses. Don't you think you should explain? How come your knee injury is getting worse? I raised my eyebrows and looked at her. Wasn't it her who made Lysander make me kneel for an hour every day? Now she's asking me why the injury is getting worse. This woman is really fickle. As for explanations, haven't I explained enough over the years? She's never trusted me. Seeing that I didn't respond, she sighed and said, "Don't worry too much about your mother's illness. I'm still looking for a heart, and I'll make sure Auntie gets better. But my mother is already gone. She doesn't need a heart anymore." I lowered my head and said nothing. She looked at me again and said cautiously, "The traffic police have already notified us. Chen will have his driver's license revoked for drunk driving. Anyway, you have a driver's license but no car, so you can take responsibility for him. You can name any amount of money, but my mother died in that car accident. How can she make me take the blame for the culprit?" I pushed away the porridge she handed me and said, "Serafina, let's break up." She looked surprised, as if waiting for me to continue, but when she heard my words, she froze and asked, "Break up? What do you mean?" I said casually, "You said you only care about my money, didn't you? You've already grown tired of me. Breaking up is for the best. At least I won't be a burden to you anymore." Serafina thought I was just throwing a tantrum. She laughed coldly. "It was you who insisted on marrying into my family. Now you want to use breaking up to force me to compromise. You're so powerful. Why don't you just mention divorce?" She slammed the bowl on the table and stormed out angrily. "The reason I didn't mention divorce was because our marriage was fake to begin with. Anyway, we're about to split up anyway, so there's no point in explaining." I drifted off to sleep. When I woke up, Lysander was holding a gift and came to see me. He spoke coldly, asking, "I heard Serafina made you take the blame for me. She really cares about me, doesn't she?" I closed my eyes and didn't want to respond. He laughed. "I didn't expect you to be so money-hungry that you'd refuse. Your relationship with your mother is truly enviable. Actually, your mother changed hospitals for your sake." I suddenly looked at him, thinking, how could my mother possibly listen to you? "What did you do?" Lysander acted as if nothing had happened, smiling and saying, "Nothing. I just showed your mother the video of you kneeling and eating dog food. I also told her that your life is so difficult now, all for her sake." She immediately agreed to the transfer, and even told me to use a power outage as a signal to commit suicide. "Aldrich, she covered her mouth with her hands to save your freedom. And you still want to cling to Serafina." A wave of anger surged through me. I couldn't take it anymore. I pulled out the needle, got out of bed, and slapped him. How infuriating! I grabbed his collar, ready to punch him again. Just then, Serafina, who was carrying a lunchbox, saw what was happening and quickly stepped between us, pushing me away. I felt exhausted and accidentally bumped into the bedside, falling to the ground. Lysander pulled Serafina's clothes, covering his face and choking out, "Serafina, don't blame him. It's all my fault. He's jealous of your previous relationship. Seeing how much I resemble my cousin, he simply can't stand me. From now on, I'll try to avoid him whenever I go out." I struggled to get up, wanting to explain, "Serafina, my mother." Serafina saw the slap mark on Lysander's face, her eyes turning red. She slapped me across the face, cutting me off. "Aldrich, you drove him away and you're still so petty, you won't even spare his cousin. Now you dare to use your sick mother to plead for mercy." She was so angry she grabbed my hand and swung it toward my face, saying, "You like hitting people, don't you? Then kneel here and take 1,000 slaps before you can leave." Then she took Lysander away, shouting for a doctor all the way, as if Lysander had some serious illness. This time, she left 2 rows of burly men watching me. If I didn't strike first or kept the noise down, they would attack. By the time my face was swollen from the blows, Serafina's mother arrived, shouting, "Stop hitting him." But the leader of the men raised his hand to block her, saying, "Madam, this is the young lady's order. Please don't make this difficult for us." "Serafina, what's wrong with you?" Serafina's mother frantically called Serafina, but the line was busy. It wasn't until my face was covered in wounds, and after enduring 1,000 torturous blows that the bodyguards on both sides finally left. I numbly waved my hand. Just then, Serafina's mother grabbed my hand, choking back tears, and said, "Child, don't wait 7 days. Leave today. The helicopter is waiting on the hospital rooftop. Go with your mother and never come back." She carefully handed me her mother's ashes and portrait. Looking at her mother's gentle smile, it was hard to accept. People instinctively want to live, but she chose to end it all with her own hands. She sacrificed her life to give me freedom. I couldn't control myself anymore and cried uncontrollably while holding her ashes. Serafina drank for several days before realizing that the husband who had been sending her good morning and good night messages every day had not contacted her for a long time. She went to the hospital but found that her husband had been discharged 3 days earlier. She rushed home but still couldn't find him. Just as she began to feel uneasy, she remembered the 99 missed calls from her mother. She thought her husband had gone to her mother to complain, and she was furious, rushing back to her hometown. However, she heard Lysander's teasing voice at the door, saying, "Auntie, the one who abandoned Serafina and ran away from the wedding was my cousin. Why are you so hostile toward me? Now that Aldrich's mother has passed away, he left and never returned. I am your future son-in-law and we should get along well. After all, when you plotted the car accident to force Aldrich into marriage, I was just trying to help you by keeping it a secret from Serafina." Serafina, who was about to knock on the door, froze, and her phone fell to the ground. "Lysander Winthrop, are you threatening me?" Serafina's mother's voice came through, filled with anger. "How dare I? I'm just telling the truth." Serafina felt a chill rise from the depths of her heart. At first, she thought there might be a misunderstanding, but now, hearing the words spoken inside the house, she had completely understood. What Lysander had said was actually true. There was too much information to process, and she was momentarily stunned, failing to notice that the voices inside had stopped. Then, the door was pulled open from the inside. "How dare you eavesdrop? You're so bold, Serafina." "How could it be you?" Lysander heard the noise and thought someone was eavesdropping, just as he was about to grab the person. He never expected to see Serafina when he opened the door. Recalling what he had said earlier, his expression immediately turned grim, and he cautiously asked, "Serafina, when did you come?" Serafina's mother, who had been sitting steadily, also hurriedly stood up. Seeing the phone fall to the ground, she felt utterly despairing and closed her eyes. Despite her caution, she couldn't stop the little one beside her. The secret she had tried so hard to hide was discovered by her daughter. Serafina suddenly rushed into the room. Her eyes red and shouted angrily, "Mom, Lysander, is it true? What's going on?" Serafina's mother knew she couldn't hide it anymore. She sighed and said, "Serafina, since you've heard everything, I don't want to keep it from you anymore. Back then, when you were with Percival, I didn't approve. Later, you insisted on marrying him, and I couldn't do anything about it. However, just before the wedding, one of his relatives suddenly called me and said that Percival had gone missing. Shortly after, I found Percival, but he had run off with that wealthy woman and left the country. I gave him money and shares, but he felt that wasn't enough compared to what the wealthy woman offered. So he refused to come back and marry you. At that time, the Vanderbilt family was facing difficulties, and life was tough. Plus, your mental state wasn't good either. I was worried you wouldn't be able to hold on," and Serafina felt a sudden dizziness, clinging to the table to keep from falling. It turned out that the man who had promised her love had betrayed her. Looking back, she realized her mother's concerns had been justified. At that time, she was so immersed in love that she might not have been able to withstand such a blow, even resorting to extreme measures. She looked at her mother and asked, "So you made Aldrich play the hero and marry into the Vanderbilt family?" Serafina's mother nodded gently. Recalling how badly Aldrich had been injured when he left, feeling a pang of guilt. Aldrich's family was very poor. To support his medical studies, his father died suddenly on a construction site. Just as he was about to achieve something, his mother was diagnosed with a rare heart condition. He studied medicine diligently, but couldn't save his mother. I paid for his mother's medical expenses, and we developed a 7-year relationship. Serafina never imagined that Aldrich had such a tragic past, and she had never heard him mention it before. She thought about it carefully, and realized that she had been with Aldrich for almost 7 years as well. She suddenly thought of something and asked, "So, now that the agreed-upon time has come, you don't plan to take care of his mother anymore? Is it to transfer her to a smaller hospital?" She found it odd. As Aldrich had always been very filial, how could he do such a thing? Now everything made sense. Serafina's mother was shocked. After all, I was her mother-in-law. She shouldn't think I was so heartless. Actually, it was she who insisted on moving out. I think she didn't want to be a burden on me. After all, these debts are all her son's responsibility to repay. Serafina's mother sighed. Serafina's eyes grew moist. "I never realized I owed Aldrich so much. Where did you hide him? I will definitely make it up to him in the future." Serafina's mother sighed again. It was too late. Aldrich had already left. Left? Where did he go? Serafina couldn't believe it. Her mother wasn't even better yet. How could he leave? "I can help her mother get better. Please bring him back." Serafina's mother took out a death certificate from her bag and handed it to Serafina. "His mother had already passed away. That night, because of your drunk driving, you crashed into the power box, causing the hospital to lose power. Aldrich has nowhere left to turn and won't be coming back." The paper in her hands was ice cold, sending a chill through her heart. Her hands trembled as she repeatedly checked the information on the paper, murmuring to herself, "Dead? How could that be? It was just a power outage. How could her mother have died? I didn't know I had caused his mother's death." She curled up into a ball, her eyes vacant, tears streaming down her face. Aldrich's mother had died because of her, yet she had let Aldrich take the blame for her. She finally realized this. Aldrich had always been so patient, but why had he refused her so bluntly that day and decided to break up with her? It turned out his heart had already been broken, and she hadn't noticed at all, thinking he was just being unreasonable. Serafina's mother noticed something was wrong with Serafina's reaction and quickly comforted her, saying, "It's not your fault. His mother committed suicide. It had nothing to do with that accident." Serafina angrily pushed her mother away and cried out in despair, "Mom, don't lie to me anymore. How could his mother have committed suicide? It's really coincidental that she passed away on the same night we hit the electrical box." Serafina's mother couldn't explain it, but that was the truth. Lysander took the opportunity to comfort Serafina, saying that he must have thought you were responsible for his mother's death, which is why he was hiding and didn't want to see you. Serafina, you've never liked him and you've always been so harsh with him, haven't you? Isn't it just what you wanted for him to leave? Serafina began to reflect on her feelings for Aldrich. She had always been unclear about them, which had been causing her inner turmoil. It wasn't until Aldrich left that she realized the person she truly cared about was Aldrich. That man had risked his life to save her from the fire. In their daily life, he had been attentive to her needs and always understood her subtle emotions and thoughts. For some reason, during the time she spent with Aldrich, she gradually forgot about Percival, until Percival's cousin Lysander came to visit and showed her a surveillance video. Aldrich seemed to have deliberately waited at that intersection, as if he had already anticipated that her car would get into an accident there. There was also a record of a $1 million wire transfer in the video. She couldn't blame her mother, so she vented her resentment onto Aldrich. Moreover, just as her feelings for Aldrich were beginning to grow, she discovered that everything was a lie. The thing she hated most in her life was betrayal. Every time she discovered Aldrich's mistakes, she would think back to that betrayal, so she couldn't help but want to take revenge on him. But when she saw Aldrich limping and struggling to walk under the blazing sun, she couldn't help but feel a pang of pity, so she deliberately stopped the car, made up an excuse that Lysander wanted to eat street food, and used that as an opportunity to let Aldrich rest for a while, to play her role convincingly. She forced herself to eat the fake meat, only to end up at the hospital for stomach pumping later. Although she punished Aldrich harshly on multiple occasions, she always felt a pang of mercy in her heart. Even when she made him slap himself in the face, she couldn't bear to watch him do it. Thinking about this, she suddenly looked up and asked her mother, "Is Aldrich's face okay?" It looked very serious with severe injuries. Serafina's mother found the scene too painful to watch. Seeing her heartbroken daughter, she couldn't bring herself to scold her harshly, thinking to herself, "You're really heartless. He accompanied you through the hardest 7 years of your life. He did his best." Serafina found this hard to believe. How could things have turned out this way? "I only told them to keep an eye on him as a casual remark. I didn't really mean for them to do anything." Now she deeply regretted her impulsive decision and the pain she had caused Aldrich. Lysander noticed that Serafina was ignoring him and felt uneasy. Serafina had never treated him this way before. It was always about Aldrich. He had already driven him away, so why was he still showing up? Lysander composed himself and began to persuade her. "You're right. Aldrich was only with you for the money. Now that his mother has passed away and you've caused him so much pain, it's best if you two part ways amicably." In the past, when he comforted Serafina like this, she would always praise him and give him rewards. This time, Serafina not only pushed him away forcefully but also slapped him. "I'm angry and punishing him. Isn't that because of you? He always keeps his feelings bottled up inside. Are you the one stirring things up behind my back? Intentionally making me see you being bullied?" She only realized now that Aldrich had tried to explain, but she had interrupted him with a slap. She still couldn't understand why Aldrich had mentioned his mother. Was it because Lysander had brought up his mother, hurting him deeply? Otherwise, Aldrich's personality is such that he'd just argue a bit. Why would he suddenly resort to violence? Serafina's mother heard the whole story and immediately flew into a rage. "It's all your fault, you troublemaker. Serafina, I've told you before, Percival is a bad man, and his entire family is no better. Why are you still keeping this burden by your side for him? You've hurt Aldrich time and time again. Aldrich is so good to you. With a high education, while this man has no virtues at all. He just spends your money and dares to say Aldrich is with you for the money. If he were really after your money, how could he endure such a meager life for all these years? I think his mother would rather suffer herself than cause him any more trouble. This time, you've really gone too far. Is the food not good? What kind of dog food is this?" Serafina looked utterly confused. "He's such a good person. Why would he eat dog food?" Serafina's mother paused. "Wasn't it you who said you only let him spend $5 a day?" She held her head in her hands, feeling helpless. "I just said I didn't want to spend money on him. He has hands and feet. Can't he find a job and earn his own money? When he argues with me, he's always so eloquent. How can he be so sincere? 7 years of suffering. How could he endure it?" Serafina muttered under her breath, tears unconsciously streaming down her cheeks, leaving her face covered in tears. Serafina's mother handed her a tissue. "I thought it was your fault, so I didn't dare ask. He wasn't unemployed. It was Gwendolyn and the others who always messed up his work. Aldrich never mentioned any of this until recently when I invited him to dinner. And Gwendolyn and the others suddenly showed up, overturned the table and made him eat on the floor. They even said, 'This is all you're doing. You have to keep his daily expenses under $5. That's when I realized how difficult Aldrich's life had been all these years. He refused to take the money I offered him, and staying by your side didn't give him anything. Why would he covet your money?" She finished speaking, her voice choked with emotion. This was understandable. She had clearly seen Aldrich being wronged. But when she thought about who had done it, it was her own daughter. She felt uneasy and dared not ask. She feared that if she did, her daughter would bring up the matter of the marriage fraud from years ago. She was terrified that her daughter might grow distant from her. After all, Serafina was the only family she had left in this world. She couldn't return to her parents' home. Her husband had passed away, and her in-laws were eager to divide the inheritance he left behind. If a misunderstanding arose between mother and daughter, and it was exploited by someone with ulterior motives, they might face immense trouble. Serafina's mother glanced up at Serafina, observing her expression. Serafina was furious, trembling all over, and was calling her subordinates to thoroughly investigate the injustices Aldrich had endured over the years. In truth, much of what she said was just venting her anger. She never expected that her words would be taken advantage of by those with ulterior motives, causing continuous harm to Aldrich. Most importantly, her neglect of Aldrich had given those people an opportunity to exploit the situation. Today, she must thoroughly investigate the matter and ensure justice for Aldrich. She looked at her mother and said with some resentment, "Mom, you were the one who arranged the car accident. Why didn't you explain it? Why make him take the blame for you? Do you know, it was your silence that caused our only child to leave us and made our relationship grow distant." That betrayal had taken root in her heart, making her dare not believe a word Aldrich said. The misunderstanding grew deeper, and Aldrich grew further away from her. Serafina's mother was shocked. "How could this happen? You never mentioned it to me before. I didn't know, and I dared not ask. Who told you the truth? I've already disposed of all the evidence and made everyone keep quiet." However, Serafina noticed Lysander and thought to herself, it was Lysander who told her. She turned to look for Lysander. They were so engrossed in their conversation that they didn't notice when Lysander had quietly left. This man looked a lot like the ideal man in her heart, and he had the evidence to expose the truth, acting as if he cared about her. She was instantly captivated. He became the man who stayed by her side the longest. She hadn't paid much attention to him before, but now that she thought about it, she realized that every time she hurt Aldrich, Lysander was behind it. Moreover, whenever Lysander was around, no other men would approach her, and this had been going on for 7 days straight. This man's thoughts were deeply hidden, making him hard to read. No one knew what other secrets he was hiding. Serafina's mother also realized what was happening and reacted immediately. It seemed like we had been manipulated by someone else. Serafina's expression was firm. Anyone who had hurt Aldrich, she wouldn't let a single one of them off the hook. "Mom, can you contact Percival?" Serafina's mother paused. Thinking Serafina was still thinking about Percival, she hurriedly said, "Serafina, don't be foolish. He treated you so badly, how can you still think of him? If it weren't for that arrogant young man running away from the wedding, things wouldn't have turned out this way, and innocent Aldrich wouldn't have suffered so much." Serafina rolled her eyes and said, "Mom, I'm not the same silly girl I was back then. I went to find him just to investigate some things." In the cafe, Percival sat across from her. The feeling of love from the past was gone. Now he was just an ordinary man. "Serafina, did you come to find me because you can't forget me?" "Actually, I can't either. Back then, I was deceived by that woman and I've always loved you. That's why I rushed over as soon as you called." "Serafina, can we start over?" Percival pulled out a ring, filled with deep emotion, but Serafina felt repulsed. What Percival called a change of heart was actually because he hadn't expected that under her and her mother's care. The Vanderbilt family had become increasingly prosperous, and he regretted his previous choice. Serafina understood this, but she didn't plan to respond. However, she had other matters to attend to, so she didn't ask for clarification. "Percival Winthrop, how are you feeling after your heart surgery?" Percival paused. "Heart surgery? I'm feeling fine." After parting ways with Percival, she returned home and saw the surveillance footage of Aldrich being bullied, which made her heart ache, and tears streamed down her face. She only realized everything just now. It turned out that Percival had not been in contact with his family relatives all these years. The heart disease was also a lie. In fact, all of this was orchestrated by Lysander to gain more attention, using Percival's identity to cause trouble behind the scenes. She had been kept in the dark, believing that she had canceled the engagement. The guilt in her heart, combined with her youthful naivety, had led her to side with him time and again. Now that the truth was finally out, she decided to turn the tables and make those responsible pay for their actions. Serafina could finally hold her head high and go meet Aldrich. She deliberately wore the dress Aldrich had given her, filled with anticipation as she went to meet him. After just a few days apart, Aldrich looked a bit more robust, completely different from his previous emaciated appearance. The only thing that worried her was that the wounds on his face hadn't healed yet, and he limped slightly when he walked. Aldrich, Serafina rushed toward Aldrich with flowers in her hands, hugged him tightly and said, "I'm sorry, Aldrich. I finally understand now that you've suffered so much injustice. It's all my fault. I didn't pay attention, which gave those people the chance to hurt you. But don't worry, I've already taken care of everything." She showed Aldrich a video. In the video, Lysander was injured, kneeling on the stairs, looking terrible, walking while shouting, "I'm sorry," with no dignity left. As for the friends who had hurt Aldrich, Serafina had dealt with their pets, forcing them to eat them one bite at a time. In the video, several girls were crying and vomiting, their eyes filled with fear as they looked at Serafina. "Is this enough? If you think it's not enough, you can do it yourself." Aldrich pushed her away and said coldly, "Miss, please behave yourself." Serafina froze, hurriedly saying, "Aldrich, I know I was wrong. Can you take me home?" But Aldrich couldn't break free. Then a child ran over and said to her, "Auntie, you've mistaken me for someone else. This is my dad." Then he said to his father, "Let's go, Dad, we're going home." Aldrich smiled gently, ruffled the child's hair and teased him playfully. The child, however, pulled his hand and walked toward the distance. Serafina shook her head in disbelief. It had only been a few days since they last saw each other. How could he already have a child? "I don't believe it." Serafina's mother pulled her aside and sighed, "Forget it. He clearly doesn't want to see you." Aldrich, who had walked away, also sighed. It seemed he was planning to go somewhere else again.